I would like to inform Native Americans living in the United States today that they are kidnapped and illegally detained in federal court. In the meantime, I have been on YouTube several times to inform U.S. federal courts of the abduction and illegal imprisonment of Native Americans, and I would like to constantly inform them until they are released from federal courts and prisons. Native Americans are not allowed to be detained or prosecuted in U.S. federal courts and the treaty with Native Americans. I've already talked about the treaty on YouTube countless times, but once again, I'd like to briefly explain why Native Americans are illegally imprisoned. 1. The last chapter of the Indigenous indictment doesn't have a preparedness jury signature because the grand jury can't indict. 2. Indigenous cases are not registered on the federal court register. There are no indictments and no grand jury signatures, so of course they cannot be registered. However, Indigenous cases are listed on the website pacer.com. The website is not registered in the U.S. federal court. There must be a federal register of action. When a federal court falsely prosecutes me, look at the final chapter of my indictment made by Santa Ana Federal Court Prosecutor Jennifer Weah. Notify Native Americans. Be sure to go to federal court and look up the Federal Register of Courts for their case. Those who serve in the United States federal courts and the lawyers who defend the public in the federal courts, please declare your conscience and release your native people from illegal imprisonment. Once again, anyone who has been charged in federal court at least once must go to federal court and check their case. Be sure to check out the Register of Action. From September 30th, 2007 to February 12th, 2025, I witnessed countless Indigenous and American residents kidnapped and illegally imprisoned in federal prison for 18 years. I will continue to broadcast on YouTube until some of the Aboriginal people kidnapped and illegally held in U.S. federal courts and prisons, as well as some of the U.S. residents illegally held in false charges, are released and the kidnapping laws condemned. If anyone is currently watching my YouTube, please help. I feel threatened with my life by the U.S. government and can't get by. They must be monitoring every move 24 hours a day. I can't socialize because I have everyone around me, and my whole life has been completely destroyed by the U.S. government, and my family has become enemies and are suing and accusing each other. 18 years of kidnapping and illegal imprisonment are not enough to do this cruel thing. The reason why they're doing this is because I know the ugly state of the U.S. federal courts, and I can prove it legally and historically. How can these human beings be prosecuted and tried in federal court? Things are happening on earth that can never happen. The Department of Justice is also in cahoots. Among the public defenders in federal court, so many are taking the lead in cooperating with federal kidnapping and illegal imprisonment. A public defender was appointed to the first person to be charged in federal court. The public defender then has no choice but to be the first to know whether the person is kidnapped or illegally imprisoned. The kidnapping and illegal imprisonment of these federal courts cannot take place without the cooperation of these kidnapping lawyers. Of course, that's not to say that all lawyers are criminals, but any lawyer who has represented Native Americans and residents of the country who have been kidnapped or illegally held would be considered kidnapping lawyers. So how many of these federal, public, or private lawyers are there? At least millions of Indigenous people who have passed through prison in the past or are now in illegal incarceration, and thousands more have I witnessed in 18 years of illegal incarceration. The answers are there for federal courts, prisons, and the Department of Justice. They still follow me and see why they torture, racketeering, and threaten me. I desperately need the help of conscientious people.